Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Around the Big Ten podcast. I'm Mark Givler, joined by Chip Minnick as always. We are continuing our look around the Big Ten team by team at 3 burning questions for every Big Ten program as we head into spring football practice over the next few weeks. We are on to Rutgers. Greg Schiano has started to rebuild the program for a second time, and we continue to see flashes. They've been a hard out for a lot of teams the last couple of years under Schiano, but they're going to have some things to shore up this spring as they try and make the next step. And maybe the biggest thing is going to be replacing Kyle Monangai, their very talented running back, who is going to be playing on Sundays. Chip, how tough will this be? On one hand, these types of players maybe don't grow on trees at Rutgers. On the other hand, they seem to have done a pretty good job with running backs the last several years, going back to Pacheco and some of the other backs they've had. How big of a task is this, I guess, for Rutgers?
It could be, we'll have a better understanding after the spring. I mean, I'm going to mark that as like a to be determined. Like that might be like one of those post-spring analysis. We'll have a better understanding. I mean, I'm glad that you brought up about, all right, Pacheco, he's having a fine career in the NFL. I believe, like you, that Monangai is going to have a fine career in the NFL. So it sounds like, okay, Rutgers, you've done this before. How difficult can it be? When you look at the talent on hand, okay, Kyle Monangai, he ran for almost 1,300 yards. The next running back on the roster, Antoine Raymond, didn't even have 500. So, I mean, that's, I'm not saying that to belittle Antoine Raymond's abilities. It's just that, okay, they really had Monangai as the centerpiece of that Rutgers offense. So is it going to be, are they going to elevate Raymond into a similar type role that they had with Monangai and have him the focal point of the offense? It's worked, obviously, the last few years with Monangai. So maybe that might be the mindset of Rutgers. Maybe it's going to be more of a running back by committee approach. But I think we'll have a better understanding after the spring in terms of, how everyone is looking. And again, one of the most cautionary tales that anyone has to have when it comes to spring ball is everyone staying healthy. Like you can build all of your hopes and dreams around a certain individual, and the next thing you know, it's like, that person is lost for the season. So I think we'll have a better understanding as to how the Rutgers running game is going to look after the spring.
And let's be honest, keeping Antoine Raymond from going into the portal, because every time you get a freshman who does anything, you risk them being poached. Keeping him around, I think, was big for them. He had a really good end of the season. Mm-hmm. He got to play a lot in the bowl game, and he had 18 carries for 113 yards and 3 touchdowns. And he had 9 carries, 71 yards, 2 touchdowns in the final game against Michigan State. So this is someone who started to come on at the end of the season as a freshman. And so I'm sure that's going to be like the first look that they give is going to be, okay, can this guy be our next one? And that's going to be, I think, as big of a question as anything is like, okay, if the Antoine Raymond we saw at the end of the year can build off of that into the spring and continue to develop, then yeah, this is a pretty simple answer. But that's something to find out this spring is if he's kind of ready to take that jump to being the guy. But I think they got to feel pretty good about him coming back and kind of what that might look like. This is a team they've had to play this physical downhill brand of football. They've just had to, and that kind of takes me into our second question here. What can they do offensively to become more dynamic? That has 1,000% been the thing that is holding Rutgers back right now, is they are not dynamic, diverse enough offensively.
Well, let's face it, at the quarterback position, they've kind of had, their challenges there. I mean, Ethan Kaliakmanis is coming back. I don't, I'm not sure if there's any Rutgers fans out there, in terms of, and I'm not saying this to be snarky, like, okay, is that a good thing or a bad thing? If you're a Rutgers fan, how do you look at that? And I think it goes back to Kirk Soraka as the offensive coordinator, that I have nothing against. Being a run dominated, run oriented offense. I think especially, if that is your philosophy and that's what you believe in, then that's fine and good. But you have to have some diversity in your offense with the passing game. And I'm just not sure at the quarterback position, if it's a matter of trust, if it's a matter of ability with Callie McManus who they brought in as a transfer portal quarterback a year ago, if they know what they can do with him at that quarterback position.
Yeah. So I'm going to say it's a good thing. And here's why. They've had a revolving door at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
Both in season and out of season. Like they've had years where they've had to play multiple quarterbacks. They've lost guys in the portal. They've had highly recruited guys.
Yeah.
Arthur Sikowski didn't work.
Right.
Gavin Wimsatt, which I was convinced was going to work, didn't work. These were 4-star, like top 100, top 150 type players nationally. These were really highly regarded prospects. Just for whatever reason, didn't work. And so they finally go into an off season where you can return your quarterback. Now things have to improve. Like, okay, things I like. Only 7 interceptions last year. So relatively took care of the ball relatively well. You need to do that. You want to, play complementary football, play good defense, play physical defense, run the football, don't turn it over. That's all well and good. 53.9% completion percentage is like objectively terrible for college football. Like you should be 60% at least, especially in that offense with the running game you have behind you. You should be much more accurate. You should be making like relatively high percentage throws. So the accuracy has to improve like in a big, big way there. But they take care of the ball. They can run it. So yeah, I just think, again, one thing that will help them be a little more diverse, a little more dynamic is, again, just be more accurate throwing the football. And whatever that looks like. I mean, because I watch them and it's not, I don't look at them and think, oh, they're just asking so much of their quarterback and that's why the completion. I really don't. So just whatever it is, footwork, release, whatever it is, they got to fix the mechanics or something, because if you can get 60 to 62% out of your quarterback behind a good running game, huge difference. And you can keep the interceptions down. Like, that 7-8 point percentage difference in completion percentage next year. If you can have the running game, keep the interceptions down, that's an enormous difference. It probably wins you like 2 more games.
Yeah, it's one of these things where when you look at the transfer portal additions, and again, they didn't go crazy. It's going to be interesting to see, like a name that kind of, I'm just kind of curious how he's incorporated into the Rutgers offense. Colin Weber at tight end, 6'4", 255 pounds, listed. That's a big target. You know what I mean? Like, and again, the Rutgers passing game is not something that, that I think most Big Ten defenses, quake in fear of. But I think that they, like the fact that it's, like you're looking for efficiency, somebody like that, like a consistent target, like somebody that can help you move the chains, help you control the clock. Like you said, the running game is always going to be the staple of the offense. But if you can improve that accuracy, if you can start to incorporate more individuals into the passing game, I think that can only help improve the overall product on the field.
Yeah, and like I went back and looked real quick, and like his Ethan's QBR was 44th in the country, which not terrible. Like that's top half. It's top third ish. So if you get that completion percentage up closer to 60, 61, 62, that QBR goes up too. Now you've got one of the more, maybe one of the top 25 most efficient quarterbacks. So if you can have a top 25 quarterback in terms of just efficiency, with that run guy, like I said, that's the difference to me, is finding ways to make the quarterback a little bit more accurate, a little bit more efficient. Now this will be this might be their biggest thing. It's going to be a brand new brain trust kind of defensively. Zach Sparber is in as co-DC. He comes over from James Madison, where he was coaching the linebackers. Rob Smith stays on staff. This is 7th year, I believe, now at Rutgers. Mm-hmm. He will be co-DC with Zach Sparber. How big is this in terms of like, how big of a question is this? How big of a concern is this? I'll let you go first, Chip. I have some thoughts, but obviously anytime you're retooling your coordinator position on defense, it's going to be a something.
Yeah. I think it's huge. The thing that I think you and I would definitely agree on is like Greg Schiano has a defensive background. So it's like, that's a positive if they're, like when you're incorporating a new defensive coordinator, as far as, the fact that they are bringing in, Rob Smith as a defensive coordinator with Zach Sparber. The thing that I would be somewhat happy about, if you're speaking as objectively as I possibly can about Rutgers, I would think, is that he has familiarity with Greg Schiano. I mean, he was the defensive coordinator there in 2020 and 2021. So he has an understanding, okay, this is how Coach Schiano wants this to be run, or this is how he likes it to be. And I would anticipate, I'm not saying it's going to happen, I would anticipate Greg Schiano being more heavily involved in those meetings, since that is more of the area on the side of the ball that he's more naturally inclined or has more familiarity with. But yeah, anytime that you're bringing in new coaches, and under Schiano, we were talking about things that you can kind of expect. Okay, the running game, the Rutgers defense, I completely agree with what you said at the onset. Like Rutgers is definitely not an easy out anymore. I mean, Rutgers, you're gonna be playing a full 60 minutes against Rutgers, and you're gonna be probably spending a little time in the ice bath afterwards, because I mean they pride themselves on their physical style of play. I think back to a couple years ago when Ohio State, when they were there, they had Ohio State on the ropes. I know Ohio State fans used to, back in the day when the Big Ten was divided into the Big Ten East and West, like being able to check off, okay, well, like Rutgers, that's a win. Well, under Schiano, Ohio State has not lost to Rutgers, but it's something where I think Ryan Day would even admit, it's going to be a physical game. So the defense is definitely something that Schiano takes a lot of pride in. So I would anticipate with Sparber and Rob Smith that it's going to be more of a collaborative effort this coming spring.
And that's really my thing here. Like, I wasn't born yesterday. I know how the co-DC things work. Like, a lot of this is just titles for resumes and to justify raises and everything else that goes with it. So I get that. But you've got a couple of co-DCs, and you've got Greg Schiano being a defensive guy. Like, there has to be, ultimately, like, collaboration is great, but ultimately there has to be a chain of command, and it has to be followed. And so I think that's the key this spring, is like, who's calling the defense, who has final say, who is ultimately making decisions on game plans. Yes, collaborative effort. Yes, I get that. But someone ultimately has to be pulling the trigger on these things. So that, I think, will be a key thing, is making sure that the collaboration is a positive thing and not a too many cooks in the kitchen type of thing, because it can go either way with that stuff. We've seen it good and bad over the years. So that's a key thing for me for Rutgers. But they've played hard physical defense under Schiano, so there's no reason to really expect that to not continue. And then again, if they can get this quarterback play and just this offense figured out a little bit, they could be a surprise team in the Big Ten. They really could. And so we'll do the spring autopsy, post spring autopsy. We'll do the schedule analysis afterwards. But these are all interesting questions that I think there's certain teams we're going to talk about where it's like, well, they need all three of our questions to go their way so that they can make a bowl game. You know what I mean? Like, just so they can make a bowl game. Right. I think if Rutgers gets all three of their things to go their way, they're a surprise 8 or 9 win team. If everything goes their way.
Right.
I don't think it's that dire of a situation where it's like bull or bust, for these guys. I think they've got a little more upside than that. So we'll see if the questions are answered. We'll be back with another one here soon. But again, we're doing these on all the Big Ten teams. So go to youtube.com/@SaturdayGlory. You can watch them all, or go to Around the Big Ten on your podcast platform of choice and search, and you'll find us there as well. So thanks everyone for watching and listening, and we'll be back here with another one very soon.